Well, I think Skype came around at really a very fortuitous moment in history. And in fact, I think we'll look back 5 or 10 years from now and say this was really a tipping point in one of the largest and most important industries in the world, in the communications industry. It's the time when that industry shifted from being hardware to being software. And what do I mean by that? Well, if you cast your mind back 10 years, you'll remember that thing, that heavy, clunky thing you had called a phone that would sit on your desk. And the same one in a sort of rectangular shape that would sit on the wall, right? We all had, there were two models available, Model A and Model B. And that was a dedicated appliance, dedicated to voice, tied to a dedicated network, the twisted copper network, that was again dedicated to voice. And back then, communications equaled voice communications. They were one and the same. And innovation happened once every 3 years when the phone company would release voicemail or caller ID, one of those. We all got real excited in my household, at least, when caller ID came along. And again, the pace of innovation is every few years, the hardware company, the telco, would server side, launch something new. Thinking of today's world, obviously, you know, for many of you who cover this space, you know you can't go a week without a really interesting innovation coming along. And if you think about the way the world actually works, people wake up and they get on their multi-purpose computing devices, which you really can't call a phone anymore. If you think about what the iPhone is, I check stock prices on it, I watch movies on it, I download music on it, and oh yeah, by the way, I communicate on it. And when I communicate, I'm no longer talking about just voice communication. I'm actually talking about a full spectrum of communication that can happen from the very thinnest communication, which would be maybe Twitter, or in our world, the mood message, to an SMS, or a chat, or voice communication, or a video communication. There's a full spectrum of ways that people communicate. Again, it's one application of many on a multi-purpose device tied to a multi-purpose network. And essentially then, communication just becomes bits and bytes, like any other form of bits and bytes that are happening over that network. When people are communicating, there's a certain set of core services that they want, no matter what mode they're communicating in. For example, an address book and presence that you need whether you're chatting, voice, or video. There's also increasingly an expectation that you can do that on any device. So to bring that to life within Skype, we talk about a scenario where someone starts on their desktop with a conference call. They've got 3 or 4 people on that conference call. They get up and walk to the car. It automatically switches to their BlackBerry. They have the conversation on their BlackBerry. When they get in their car, it switches to be over the speakers via Bluetooth. They get out of the car, walk into their home, wave, and it appears as a multi-party video happening on their flat panel TV. They close that down, walk in the kitchen, start cooking a meal. Can't remember quite how to do it. Tap the TV on their refrigerator, call up their mother, who says, yeah, you're screwing that whole thing up. You really got to do it different, or whatever. And you close the call and you go on with your day. But it's just a simple scenario to show that actually in that world, all devices are actually connected to the internet. And because they're connected to the internet, and because communications is now software, communications flows like water from device to device. Whichever device is most appropriate for you, using whichever mode is most appropriate for you. And just like the train companies did not invent the airline industry, it will not be the telecommunications companies that will invent the software communications of the future. So I think when we look forward, the top communications companies in the world 5, 10, 15 years from now, all of those names will be software companies, not hardware and infrastructure companies. And when I think about where Skype is 5 years in, gosh, this is ours to win. This is ours to win.